everybody, welcome back. Another episode of 3 by 5 Presents. I'm the 3, he's the 5, as he always
Yeah.
throws up the 5, just to let you know who's doing it, who's we're talking about. Christopher Mark, Mauri-Batik, we're back at you. Still on this WandaVision kick, and we're at episode 4, which is the episode so far. Obviously, we say that about every episode, how enjoyable it is, so on and so forth. But this is, as we said in episode 3, with episode 3, we kind of crossed the threshold here, and now there's no going back. Now, Maury, my pick up the pieces reference.
Yes, works very well.
White band.
Yes. Very nice. Very nice.
Think about it's going down. But we're going to get to that a little bit later as we walk through this episode and just talk about the finer points, and then at the end we're going to pick up those set pieces and just kind of tie it all together.
Let's do it.
Wow, Maury. Wow. Like, we're finally, not finally, like it's been this long, arduous task, because it has not been, but we're back in movie form, if you will.
Yep.
At the end of episode 3, the screen ratio changed. We said it's time for some action. Action with a K.
Okay.
Yeah, with a K and an S. And episode 4 begins in that style. We're in movie form, as I feel. You know what I mean? The character that we know as Geraldine so far is, she's in a hospital, which we find out in a hospital room, but she's being reconstituted, as I put it. And my initial reaction to that was, okay, Wanda's doing something to her.
Yeah, I didn't think it was what it turned out to be at first. Yeah.
And what did it turn out to be, Maury? What did it turn out to be, Maury?
It's the blip. The blip.
The blip. It's the Thanos snap. It's the
recurrence.
Snap. Yeah.
Which, if I'm correct,
come on.
The only time they've ever shown that kind of like in real time and not just talked about the consequences of it was a little snippet in Spider-Man. What was the second one called? Far From Home. But in that where they're showing, like, they show the clip of the basketball game, the high school basketball game, and all of a sudden someone like appears in the middle of the court, and everyone's like, "Oh crap, what is that?" But this, the way they do this, to me is justification number 1 of the concept of how they're going about this. And I'll talk about that in a moment. But
does this concept have a name?
The idea of exploring the smaller nooks and crannies of a bigger universe with short form storytelling, which sounds kind of like The Mandalorian. And since it's the same folks doing this, it makes me really happy.
Dude, yeah. I'm sorry. I'm really
giddy,
dude. Whew. Oh my God.
Yeah.
She's running around the hospital, and she's running into people that worked there a half a second before.
Oof.
And I was like, I'm geeking out now. Okay.
Right.
I'm full geek out mode. I'm like, oh snap, oh shit, oh snap. And I'm like, oh. Everybody's coming back.
Right.
I didn't know what happened, but again, to your point, we haven't seen
exactly
how it happens. You haven't lived it.
Yep.
And circling back to your point, Ant-Man, I believe, showed people disappearing.
Yes.
And I believe they showed people coming back.
I believe you're right. Yes.
We'll maybe do some research on that and touch on that again at some point in time in another episode. But it was, you're getting, like you said, you're seeing events occur that you were never sure that we figured we have moved on past this. Endgame is over. You know what I mean?
Yep.
We're now in TV series storytelling mode. Yes, there are going to be connections. We know that. But, what connections we were going to see, what would we be revisiting? How was all this stuff going to be intertwined and interwoven? This WandaVision, like it again, it broadens the imagination
Yep.
as a viewer of this, as someone that is taking all this in. It broadens your perspective on all of it, and it feels good, dude. It's just such great storytelling. It's such
Made
great
amazing
storytelling.
storytelling.
I mean,
I hate to keep bringing up the Star
do
Wars
it,
aspect of
do
it,
it.
but
Anybody here
we,
that's watching this and
you
starting
know
to
how
watch
we
this,
go.
they
You know how we
know
go.
this
Like
is this is
that's where we start from. That's our
right.
core. And the idea that when we talked about, if you've seen our Mandalorian episodes, that Star Wars, the movies are always the big, large set pieces, the overall good versus evil. They very rarely dealt with what was happening on that small planet, you know, in that coffee shop while the
Mm-hmm.
galaxy was at war. You know what I mean?
Right,
Like it, you know, Endgame, Infinity War, and Endgame. You know, the world, the universe, reality itself
right,
is being fought over,
right.
but people are still going to work. You know what I mean? People
Yeah,
are still going to school. People are still
exactly,
eating. People are still living their
exactly.
lives, even though, you know, all this stuff is going on around them. They can see it, but you know the world still goes on. So it's very awesome to go
Yeah,
and kind of see and explore the fact that the world was still going on. Every
for,
single superhero in the
for
world
people like you and
wasn't
me,
fighting
you know what I
Thanos.
mean?
Like
Right.
yeah,
It's like how,
yeah.
and this is the part of storytelling that you rarely, if ever, get or have gotten is these huge occurrences, you know, things happening. Hulk is smashing stuff some other place. You know,
Right.
even you take it to some DC universe. You know what I mean? You know, all this stuff is happening, and how was it? You know, again, how is it all connected, dude? And now, you know, however many years later in the storytelling, how many years later in our existence from, you know, consumers of this content,
Right.
how many years have we gone and haven't gotten answers, but we're getting answers now, dude. And it is, um, I use the word refreshing, but it's gratifying
Good
to
word.
know
Good
that
word.
the
Yep.
tellers of these stories think enough about you, us,
Right. Right.
to
Right.
say, dude, let's touch on this because you know this is important. You know what I mean? This
Well,
is what
think about
people need.
how and again they've got a track record. Kevin Feige knows what he's doing. Like in the first minute of this series, we get exactly what time frame is taking place,
Hmm.
established because we're seeing Blip, and then when we get introduced to who Geraldine actually is, we're now like, okay, if that's it, and your brain's almost like boom, like it
Dude,
just immediately you're like, okay, I know exactly where we are in this entire, and all right.
right,
And now you're like, well, damn, that's impressive. I didn't know we were going to be talking about this time. This is kind of cool. You know?
right. No,
Yeah,
okay. So let's move our episode on. Let's move
do
this
it.
our reaction and review on because you're absolutely right. She's going through the hospital.
Yep.
She's talking about her mom. Dude, your mom died 2 years ago.
Exactly.
You disappeared three and a half,
Three,
I think they
and you're
said.
like, all right, bling, 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 bling.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, yeah. So all this stuff is moving, the show's going on, and you're like in your mind, like, okay, what's happening? What went on? They're
Yep.
like, and I think they said to her, Miss Rambeau,
Yes. Yes, they did.
and
Yes,
I
they
was
did.
like, it didn't click to me. I'm not gonna lie, it didn't click to me.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
I'm not that guy where I can recall everything and even the most important things. I mean, you know, I need some help, folks. Okay, I'm not Mauri. Okay, and I'm naming
We're
after
gonna
you.
put the link for the ginkgo biloba below. Please donate.
Something. Below. I need the extra joint. You know, whatever sea moss, seaweed. You know what I mean? I need that stuff from the ocean that has an extra. Uh,
He needs omega
anyway,
3 fatty
you know what I
acids.
mean?
All the
Good
fish.
Lord, help me, help me. Um, Now we jump from the hospital, and old girl, who we still don't know her name, we know her last name, I believe. She's in this building. The building says S.W.O.R.D, Sentient Weapon Weapons Observation Response Division.
Boom.
S.W.O.R.D.
Nailed it.
She's using her key card that doesn't work, Dude walks up to her and is like, Monica Rambeau. It still doesn't click to me, Maury. And I'm not going to say it didn't click. And this is why I probably should watch some stuff with you or somebody else that knows, that has a brain. It didn't
Right.
click to me until afterwards. I'm not even going to front, y'all.
Gotcha.
It didn't click to me
Gotcha.
afterwards until I was doing some research about something else. And I
Gotcha.
read somebody's stuff on this because I was
Right.
looking up what S.W.O.R.D meant. I wanted to make sure I had the right.
I'd forgotten about S.W.O.R.D. I forgot that they had brought S.W.O.R.D up in what was S.W.O.R.D brought up in? Was it in Captain Marvel or was it? I know they brought it up before. I just can't remember.
Let us know in the comments if you know when S.W.O.R.D was brought up. Please let us know in the comments.
Please let us know.
At
Yes.
this particular point, I don't recall, and I'm fine with that. I don't have all the information. I love learning. But in her conversation with the director of S.W.O.R.D or acting directors, he said, they're walking through the building and he's telling her about, she's looking at things like, it's looking a little different. He's like, yeah, blah blah blah. Your mom did a lot, and I'm like, her mom? Why is she such a joint? More, go ahead. You can take the story from here if you want, or you can just talk about her mom, since I'm such an idiot.
Well, you're not an idiot because the reality is the true depth of this, which you may not even be aware of yet,
Go ahead.
is from the comic books.
Mm-hmm.
So, Monica Rambeau's mama is the wonderful woman that we meet in Captain Marvel. She's Maria Rambeau. Thank you. She's Captain Marvel's best friend.
Yeah.
Ends up going to space with her, and I just did some quick research. S.W.O.R.D shows up the first time at the end of Spider-Man: Far From Home.
Jesus.
In a post-credit scene where, because we knew the Skrulls had been playing Nick Fury and something, and so S.W.O.R.D, I think, was kind of formed in a response to the fact that S.H.I.E.L.D. was infiltrated by Hydra and was all fucked up and all that shit. Go ahead, please.
Here's and just for people that are watching and for you and I, S.H.I.E.L.D. deals with terrestrial matter.
Bam.
S.W.O.R.D deals with extraterrestrial, which lends itself to, this is why it's connected with Captain Marvel, Maria Rambeau. And as you continue on really quick, I just want to say the whole time I'm watching this, and excuse me for being who I am and what I am, but I'm like, how is this black chick how is she the focus of this right now? What's so special about her? Because you don't see that. You don't see that. This is WandaVision, dude. This is,
this is 2021.
This is groundbreaking.
Right.
And black women don't get this type of, prominence.
Right.
Not what I'm used to.
Right.
And so for her to be connected with her mom and Captain Marvel, I get it now. And that's dope. That's dope.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
That's dope.
Real dope.
As I'm sure a lot of women feel, black women and black men feel like, yo, because I'm like, not only is she a cutie, in her 70s gear, and now she's done, she's up to snuff with the current fashion, and
yes, sir.
The heels she got on. Unfortunately, my wife is
sorry, folks. She was looking right.
She was looking.
I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna
like,
take an L for it in the bedroom later, but she was looking right.
I would use the analogy with my kids and my sons especially. I'm like, there's nothing, you look, don't touch. It's just like you appreciating a beautiful flower. You look at it, how beautiful it is in its creation, and you keep it moving. You know what I mean? But sis was looking good, and I'm like, who is she? And now we know she's Rambeau, and her mom set up all these protocols that dude said, and I'm like, why does she know all this? And now I'm realizing that this is her mother, Maria from Captain Marvel, and it is, that's just great. That's great. Connect back with what we know, what we've already seen, and the little girl. Who knew that little girl in Captain Marvel was going to be grown up now, and obviously involved in some similar things as her mother, but just she's all up in the mix right now.
So your question is, who knew? Those of us who spent too much time reading comics instead of being out and
So when they said
seeing
Monica
the
Rambeau,
sun.
you knew immediately that this was Maria Rambeau's daughter?
I've known since Captain Marvel when they introduced the little girl as Monica
You
that
son of a
there
bitch.
was going to be something going with that. Yeah,
Son of
and
a bitch.
they confirmed pieces. And full disclosure, folks, I'm going into uncharted territory here. These could be potential spoilers. I don't know crap about where they're going with the story. I have
Right.
ideas. I'm going to give you some pieces from the comic books, but if you're familiar with the MCU, they very rarely stick directly to the way the comic books do it. They usually
Right.
take pieces from different
Right.
stories and
Right.
mix and match. So
Right.
I'm actually hoping I don't nail this because I want to be surprised. But
Mm-hmm.
here's some things we know. When Monica's walking through the offices in S.W.O.R.D and they see the picture of her mom, and mom's call sign is Photon.
Right.
Keep that
Right.
in
I
mind.
knew that was right.
Yep, keep that in mind. So in the comic books, Monica Rambeau is a scientist not working for S.W.O.R D. S.W.O.R D. I keep saying S.W.O.R D. Why am I having trouble pronouncing that?
I was gonna let you roll with it. You know my
I'm not going to say it
lineage
again. The thing
from
that starts with S.
technology and editing for my parents. So I
Yeah,
was
it's not
like,
going to work.
"There's a
There's going to be
switch
an
going on
asterisk
there." I'm
every
like,
time I say it, folks.
"Cool, sis,
Drinking game.
sword one more time." We'll have to pause this and
Point is,
go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
walking through the building of this facility, and we see the picture. And like I said, from the comic books, Monica Rambeau becomes a superhero through an accident, classic superhero type stuff, that grants her superpowers. And long story short, she's living light.
Oh
She's
God,
living
Maury.
light. All right,
Okay.
she's a creature of living light.
This is her mother, Maria. Is Photon, or this
This
is
is
Monica?
Maria.
Okay, okay.
Right.
Her mother.
Well, no. Excuse me, Monica.
Okay.
Monica's the one that gets the powers, but one of the nicknames that she uses when she gains these powers, not the first one, but one of them is Photon, because photon is a form of light, the light something. I don't know. Her one of her names also is crap. I don't want to get it wrong. Might be Captain Marvel or might be Miss Marvel. She's a Marvel also in the comic book universe. One of her names. She also, at one point in time, is the leader of the Avengers as Captain Marvel, I believe.
Uh-huh.
And she is not the first female leader of the Avengers, but I believe the first person of color to lead the Avengers in the comic books. And the storyline actually kind of talks a little bit about that, as much as they did in the 90s. But it's a great
Oh, this is from
storyline.
the 90s comic.
Yeah, this is 90s.
Oh.
Yeah. So
Oh, okay.
great storyline from that.
Damn. Do you still read comics and stuff like that?
I don't.
Okay.
And I regret that constantly. But yeah, I don't. Not as much as I used to.
Side
Not even
note,
close.
sorry folks.
Yep.
It's me
But
and
this, so are they going to go there? Don't know. The fact that they showed that Maria's call sign was Photon is a nice little wink, nudge, nudge. I feel like the way she got her powers in the comic book, which was just a classic, accident in front of equipment, like the way they always do it,
camera
like
rays,
right. I feel
this
like
goes on and on.
that is ripe for a reboot. I believe it's actually even been rebooted in the comics. Because her powers have changed over time in the comics to what she can and cannot do. So I would not be surprised if her powers, if she gains them, if she becomes a superhero in the MCU, are somehow related to Wanda. I would not be surprised if something happens there. Not
This
just something
a launching
happens.
point for,
Yep.
and who knows when we get into phase whatever MCU is in 4, 3,
4 or 5.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, 4 or 5,
they're going to be adding characters, adding storylines like never before, and so potentially she could be, again, it's right for the picking now.
Yep,
You know
absolutely.
what I mean? With the
Absolutely.
Photon reference, with her now being so prominent, she gets through there. Her the acting director of S.W.O.R.D gives her assignment, which is so the feds have this thing going on in New Jersey. We find out that Westview is actually in New Jersey, which
Right.
cool with the gang. She pulls up to the city limits, and your boy Jimmy Woo pops out.
Jimmy Woo!
Ant-Man.
Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Yeah, Ant-Man and
Yeah,
Wasp. I
Ant-Man and
don't know if
Wasp.
it was
Yep.
just Ant-Man. I think it was Ant-Man and Wasp.
Yep.
But he pops up, a familiar face, which is always cool.
Always good.
And this is why all this is dope. Is it, because we're just grabbing from all these places. You have so much stuff. It's like if you're cooking, dude. You have all these ingredients out at your disposal. You don't have to use them all every time, but having them and knowing when and how to place them into a dish, it just makes the dish that much better.
And you can tell that
Shout out to Monique.
this is good pops. You can tell that this is like it's the first party doing this, and by that I mean, if you look at the Marvel shows that were on Netflix, they were technically part of the MCU, and they referenced events in that. They talk about how New York was messed up from the first time the Chitauri or whatever attacked New York,
Right.
But it was just little things like that. You'd see like a newspaper clipping or someone would say something.
Right.
But to actually have a character from the big budget MCU show up in this little small thing.
Right.
I think they've done this before in Marvel Agents of S.W.O.R.D. I'm not a huge fan of that show. I'll be 100% honest. Monique is a huge fan of that. We may have her as a guest on here. She might want to chime in on some Marvel Agents of S.W.O.R.D. But they did, I know, tie-in events from the MCU and that, and did it a little bit better than Netflix because it was the same people coming. Same people are paying for it. But even then, you could still tell that they were working around contracts. I'm sure Robert Downey Jr. is probably like, "Yep, you can ask me to be Iron Man in any movie, but if you want me on TV because that's below me, you're gonna have to do something special to get me on there." I don't know. I'm speculating here, folks. But point is, when you can plan ahead, you can talk to these people. And I did do a little research. They knew that they were going to bring in Mr. Jimmy Woo into this before they even created the series. So again, that type of forethought to go, we're going to bring in these people and help tie in. Like maybe people who are watching this have never seen Ant-Man and the Wasp, but might want to go see it now because they're like, Jimmy Woo is hilarious. Like it's hilarious. You know what I mean? Like when he came out and introduced his business card, like, oh, you've been practicing your magic. Gotcha. I remember that. Yes.
And when he did it, I was like, wait, that's a callback to something.
Yes, sir.
And then now I remember again.
Yep.
Everything doesn't click, but when it registers, it's like, because I saw it, I was like, how's he doing that card thing? Why is that so?
Why is it? Yeah. All right. Yeah.
Dope, yo.
Yep.
And so, not only do we get to see Jimmy Woo, but we also get to see my girl, Darcy Lewis.
Yes, sir.
When she pops in with that red lipstick, I'm like.
And the glasses. Yeah, she got that look. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they're in the vehicle.
Dr. Darcy Lewis, as she corrected old boat out. Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
They're in the vehicle, and she's like, well, what do you do? We're not supposed to talk to each other. And you already know that she doesn't go by the book.
Right.
You know what I mean? Right. And so she's like, yeah. And, her and Jimmy Woo hook up. And so these are characters that provided that comic relief that were, kind of, consistent characters, but they were still fillers in the sense that they weren't major by any stretch of the imagination.
But they made their movies. I mean, you could argue Thor's are considered, especially the second one's considered one of the low points of the MCU, and Dr. Darcy was a high point of that movie.
So we're doing WandaVision, but we have incorporated Thor. We've incorporated Captain Marvel. We've incorporated Ant-Man and the Wasp. That's dope.
That's how it rolls.
You know what I mean?
That's how it rolls.
That's dope. And Darcy's the one that figures out that. Well, here we go. Real quick, before she even goes into the town, they talk to those sheriffs. And they're like, it doesn't exist, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
What the hell? The sign's right there. Okay. She takes the drone, the helicopter, flies that sucker in. And immediately I'm like, oh.
Time sinks again. You're like, all right, now I know exactly where I am. Yep.
Right. And now back to episode 2 when Wanda finds the helicopter, which is a drone that we know now, of sorts. She finds it, but it's different. And I'm like, well, what the hell? You know what I mean? So there's still, you see that there's some connection there. There's a huge connect there, but it's still not making sense.
Right.
Forwarding on, she gets her assignment. She goes to her post, She's looking at stuff using her instrumentation. You know, she's of course cynical and facetious as hell.
Of course.
You know, I love it because that's right up my alley.
Right.
And she figures out that the frequency that's being emitted is, you know, can be viewed on old television. She goes, "Give me a TV and not a flat one." You know what I mean?
Right.
And we spoke before about my first TV, and we talked about TVs with WandaVision and the black and whites and all that stuff.
Hell yeah.
So now, you know, she's able to view what's going on, and now they're figuring out that this is a television show that's being aired. Is it real time? Where's this feed, so to speak, coming from? You know, and all these questions are popping up, and now the story is just gaining speed. And the drone goes in, and before we even get to Darcy leaving, Monica is sucked in. I forgot to say that. She's sucked in.
Right.
And so now we know, okay, the drone goes in, Monica gets sucked in, Darcy comes on board, she figures it all out as far as what we're looking at here. And it's just a matter of time before the dots and what I said, picking up the pieces. You know, we're starting to put things together. And so we're drawing the connections now because Darcy has the idea to talking through existing technology within the television show, the radio, the transistor radio. She notices it on the screen. Maybe we can communicate with that because, you know, the frequency that the show is being aired on and being, you know, projected in, you know, so on and so forth. And that's when Jimmy Woo's the one that talks to Wanda in episode 2, saying Wanda, Wanda. That's his voice.
Yep.
Who knew?
Yep. Who knew? Exactly. Who knew? Right.
You know, and they finally see Monica. They're putting together the pieces. This person's playing that person. I don't know who all these quote unquote actors are and actresses are that are playing these roles in WandaVision. You know, and how they're able to research them and find them, and why do those people get to be a part of it?
What's interesting, if you look at some of the faces and pay attention, and I confirmed this with a little research, the casting for those roles, as well as the decision to use Dr. Darcy and Agent Woo were calculated. The guy playing Jimmy Woo played on a sitcom, I think it was called Fresh Off the Boat. The actress playing Darcy played on Two Broke Girls, another sitcom.
Kat Dennings and Randall Pack.
There you go. Yeah. You probably recognize the woman from that 70s show.
Right.
Yep.
The wife of the doctor, I think it was.
Bingo. There you go. Nailed it. There you go. Yep. So all of these people.
Show, but yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. All of these people were specifically chosen by Marvel because of their sitcom experience. Because apparently the way they're filming this show is the same way you film a sitcom, which again makes me giddy about how they're going to tell and move this story along. Because sitcom format, when done right, is mind-boggling. If you think about some of the best sitcoms ever created, the ones that had a continuing narrative through it, like it was must-see TV whenever it was, and not just NBC. I know that was NBC's saying, but in any, you know, Cosby Show, Friends, Seinfeld,
right?
It just keep going. All the ones that had a continuous narrative. When they're done right, you know, they keep you coming back. And it's not even about the overall quality always, but it's just it keeps you coming back.
Absolutely. And you know, finishing off this episode, we get to the point where Monica is kicked out the bubble. She's no longer Geraldine. She's Monica again. And I'm thinking, okay, so, and here's another callback as well. And it's recent. I realized that in episode 1, where they had the person sitting at the desk with the sword thing on the notepad and the
Ah,
television screens,
yes,
that's Dr. Darcy.
yes,
That's her.
yes,
She's the one that's sitting there notating this stuff. I thought it was
yes,
somebody who was
yeah.
orchestrating all this.
Mm,
I'm like, okay, so this is some type of
mm.
Hydra. They've got Vision and Wanda trapped somehow, whatever.
I saw a few. I tried to avoid, but I saw a few theories like that pop up online. I'm like,
Right.
no, y'all, no. I
Yeah.
know this is not that.
Right.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
wasn't sure, but I was like, it's something. It's
Right,
something.
right.
And that something is, again, that was excellent placement, how they show her. And you're like, is this being orchestrated? Is
Right,
somebody producing this show
right.
or observing Wanda and Vision or keeping them
So, like,
captive? You just
what
didn't
was the
know.
movie? The Truman Show with Jim Carrey. Like, is
Right.
this something on
Which
that
I'm
level? Yeah,
sure the Truman Show played into this as far as ideas on how we can put this all together and make it make sense. You know what I
absolutely,
mean? Because
absolutely.
I thought Truman Show, the first time when Monica, who was then known as Geraldine, was kicked out and the floodlights and all that stuff was around it, I was
Yep,
like, something's happening. And the people inside don't know that
are
there's a
in
real
on it.
world outside.
Right,
And I
yeah,
immediately
yeah, yeah.
thought Truman
Right,
Show
right,
and how they were trying to refocus and control the narrative when Vision got off track, when
right.
Wanda got off track. You know what I mean? There were
Yep,
these things, and now going to the end of episode 4, Monica says, "This Wanda's doing all of this."
right,
I think she said it's all in her mind or whatever.
yep.
Um, so now, which makes sense because she's the one, and they showed how they went back to episode 3 and showed how Wanda
Moved Geraldine out. Yep.
moved her out through the walls and then fixed everything. She's controlling all this.
And not only right after that, hubby shows back up, but hubby is
Missing the Mind
in
Stone? Is it the Mind Stone?
yep, yep,
Right.
yep.
And his head is caved
he,
in,
he he looks exactly like he did when he was dead. Like he's
and
all
he was dead.
gray
Yeah, in Endgame
and which
or
having not really seen that since Endgame, that shit was shocking. I was like, oh,
yeah.
Vision,
And
you was
this could be, again, we're speculating now. We're in speculation mode. This is, you know, has she going through some type of trauma?
right, right,
At some point. Now, granted, Endgame has happened. Everybody's come back, but
right.
it seems like Wanda has some type of trauma where sees Vision dead now, and she's trying to keep him alive, or you know what I mean, keep him involved in this episode, because every time when he starts to get off track, she's like, "Look, we got 2 babies.
Right.
No, I want our like this is our home. We want to stay here. I don't want to go." Because
Exactly,
he's like, "We can go."
exactly.
She's like, "No, I don't want to go. This is our home."
Yep.
So she's controlling all of this, or her inner self, emotions, subliminally is doing all this, and for what? And this may lend itself to how powerful she is, because within that power structure of Marvel characters, I mean, she's up there, and I know you know more
Oh,
about
that's
that than
actually
I
what
do.
was going to be my next statement
Come on,
is
baby, you know
one
how
of the
we do.
things that they're establishing with this is that the most powerful people in the MCU are women.
Mm.
All right, because the only one who was able to go toe to toe with Thanos for a extended period of time. We know
Mm-hmm.
Cap can hang, we know Thor can
Well,
hang, but the only one who made Thanos and could mess with Thanos when he had the gauntlet was Captain Marvel. All
right.
right, woman.
Yep.
The only
Even Wanda,
one.
though, she was mad and getting it back in her vision
So
and stabbed him. And
here's the thing. Here's
come
the
on,
thing.
come on.
Wanda doesn't know the extent of her powers yet because she hasn't been pushed. In comic books, Wanda's powers are some of the most misunderstood in all comic books, and it's a comic book nerd thing that when you understand how Wanda's powers work, you have to be a fan of her because you're like, well, shit. So real quick, she can control probability.
See, this is
All right, and
this is
you're
why
like,
I love
what does that
Mauri.
got to do with anything? Probability. Well, the probability of something
Probability.
happening is either high or low.
Mm.
If it's low, it's probably not going to happen. But what if you could change that? All right. So if the probability of me being able to rearrange reality is very low because you're not supposed to be able to do that, but I have the ability to affect probability, I can change the probability of my strength to be very high. Now I have that ability. So in the comic books, that's how Wanda becomes pregnant from a freaking android. She made it so that it was a high probability chance that something that should not be able to happen can happen. She has the ability to literally create an entirely separate reality within her mind because she adjusted the probability of that happening or not. Are they going to go full there with this in MCU? Don't know. But she clearly has ridiculously high amounts of power because what she's doing is something that the only other people in the MCU have been able to do similar things. They had an Infinity Stone in their hand while they were doing it. Doctor Strange changing time.
Right.
You know, all the other people who had one doing Loki. You know, everyone had a stone.
Thanos,
Wanda ain't got shit, y'all. It's just her.
Right. Wow.
Let's
And
think
her
about that
ability,
for a
I mean,
second.
even her ability to destroy the Mind Stone or attempt to destroy the Mind Stone was something obviously that everybody couldn't do. So yeah, I mean, you know, she's dope, you know, and
we're getting teased with another powerful woman potentially with Monica.
Monica, right? You know, the possibilities. Here we go with probability, Mauri.
Right, right.
All this stuff occurring, or some of it, in any shape, fashion, or form, it's crazy, yo. It's crazy, and you know, this is hopefully this will be the only time I say this, but you know, in the times that we're in, and this, you know, that's a whole nother thing. But it's I really enjoy having something to look forward to.
Yes.
I was looking forward to Mandalorian episodes.
Bingo.
I was looking forward to it.
Yep.
I didn't know if WandaVision was going to give me that carrot week in and week out that I would be anticipating and waiting for something new to happen.
Right.
You know, so I appreciate this. And they've done, we've been saying this, they've done a phenomenal job of telling this story and, you know, putting those breadcrumbs out there, drawing on the MCU, showing us things we haven't seen before in the Infinity Gauntlet snap, with and the reconstitution as far as Tony Stark, you know, Iron Man doing it. I mean, all that stuff, dude. This is really, really, really cool, and all the stuff they have on tap. I mean, literally, I'm anticipating us having MCU year round with all these shows. We should have MCU all around, all year round. You know what I mean? To some degree, we should have Star Wars year round.
Yep.
You know,
don't make me wait for the holidays for every 2 years for the next episode. Yeah. Keep the story going. Keep it going.
You have the tools, you have the platform and the mode to do so. You know, give it to and do it right.
Right.
Among other things, don't just give us because you can. Give us the real deal. I mean, it's 2021, people.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
No more phoning it in. Do it right,
dude. And on that note, salute to WandaVision. Salute. You know that this is it's invigorating. So I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Trey.
5.
Christopher Mark, Mauri-Batik, 3x5 presents. Thank you all. Talk to us in the comments. Let us know what you like, didn't like, what we saw, what you saw. You know, what did we point out that you were like, aha, you know, aha, all that good stuff. Until next time, folks, thank you so much. We'll see y'all real soon.
Deuces.